What's going on YouTube? The Grand Vega, also known as iDoc Live here yet again. We're going to have a quick discussion that I feel is important to me, at least. It may be important to a lot of you guys, or whomever may watch this video. And it has to do with something I've been dealing with my whole life and has affected me in, oh man, an infinite amount of ways throughout growing up, throughout living. Just as long as I can remember, and then just dealing with being a perfectionist. Now I know on the surface the people who don't have to deal with this personality trait probably like, well, you have an obsession with trying to make things flawless. You want everything to be as great as they can be, or be near perfect, or perfect. That's what you want. And on the surface, that is absolutely correct. That is a perfectionist. But there's a lot of shit within this type of trait, this type of psychological trait that makes this shit extremely hard to deal with, man. You don't understand. Like, I feel like a lot of people just don't understand. It sounds cool and all that. Oh, perfectionist. Oh, Steve Jobs is perfectionist. Michelangelo was perfectionist. Leonardo da Vinci and all that shit, and they're all great. But, man, bro, to me, this shit has been more of a hindrance than anything. It definitely has had its great moments. You know, I owe perfectionism a lot when it comes to, you know, being inventive, being creative and all that, and accomplishing certain things. But for the most part, to me, it has a negative effect on my psyche, because I'm always looking to make things as absolutely perfect as I possibly can. And it's hard to get across to a perfectionist that sometimes that just can't be. That really just can't be. You can't make anything perfect, because nothing is perfect. We live in a flawed world, a flawed universe. Everything has a flaw, and that is what makes it as great as it is. You know, there's nothing perfect in this world. There isn't. You can't make anything perfect. And to a perfectionist, that is blasphemy. Now we deal with understanding that flaws have to exist, but we have a hard time accepting that, especially in the heat of a moment where we're working on something or dealing with a subject or whatever. That is how I feel. I know flaws exist. Everyone is flawed. Everything is flawed. But when you're in the midst of something, say like, I'm going to give you a little history of me. When I was a child, growing up all the way into my adulthood until like college and stuff, I love to sketch. I've always sketched. I love sketching shit. But I was the type of sketch artist that would, I was the type of sketch artist who would scrap anything that has the slightest flaw. I would feel like it's tainted. Like I would start like drawing something or sketching a face or landscape or any type of setting or whatever, and the slightest flaw in that, any logical person would just erase it. You know what I'm saying? Not me. The slightest flaw, if I make a thumb disproportionate from a hand, I'm scrapping the entire page, no matter how much work was done on there, whether it be just a square inch of work done or an entire canvas done. I would just scrap it and start completely fresh, and I would repeatedly do that. It was an obsessive train of thinking, I guess, that I started to get into when it came to sketching, and I dealt with that all the way up until college, when I pretty much stopped sketching as much. I stopped. I didn't have that same passion for art, or I lost it, I guess, somehow, and that's where I'm at now. But I really think that it pretty much just morphed into my film editing and whatnot, and wanted to become a director. I think being a sketch artist really was sort of a vessel for me to get into really creative things, and it really did that. My imagination is bar none, and you know, getting into film and editing and whatnot, it can really have a great role in that. You know, having a bright and huge imagination, it really has a great role in that. But also, the perfectionism thing ties into that as well, as far as my editing, and you can see that within my body of work on YouTube within these last two channels. there's always a point where I'll completely stop for months, sometimes a half a fucking year. I think I did that one time. And the reason behind that is because I get in this idea that if I can't get it exactly how I want it to be, then I just won't bother at all. That is what it has led me to. Now, throughout my life, and this isn't only a sketching and editing thing, this is something I deal with on the daily, with anything, with landscaping, with even hanging a TV on the wall. If it's not completely level as possible as it could physically fucking be, I will just redo the whole thing. I'll put 4 more holes in the wall and shit until it's completely level, even though I'm using a leveler, but it's slightly leaning to the right. That type of shit. It's an obsessive mindset, and it's something that the greats have dealt with, I'm pretty sure, and it's something that I'm dealing with. I'm not calling myself great. This video is really just talking about how perfectionism has fucking just nearly destroyed me. But I just feel like this on the daily, man, and it's hard to cope with it. Like right now, I'm just rubbing my head because even when I talk, I've built in my head this type of way of speaking and whatnot, to the point where I'm constantly juggling words in my head. Before I say them, I have to find the absolute perfect word for what I'm about to explain and whatnot. I want to get it across, and I'm thinking about the people who may not understand the bigger words versus the people who do understand the bigger words and are wondering why I'm not using the bigger words, and I'm trying to make it just the perfect gel in between the two. That is the type of crazy shit I have to fucking think about every day when I'm talking to any individual, and it is something that has always gotten to my head, man. It's a psychological flaw in itself, and it's ironic because this title is perfectionism. But that is just something I've always had to deal with. Now, I'm not just going to completely antagonize perfectionism, but I'm going to definitely say, for me at least, it has had more downfalls than uplifts, I guess. Because on the upside, perfectionism has gotten me, honestly, to where I am today when it comes to stuff like editing, or even something like YouTube and whatnot. Like making these videos and these reviews. I've obviously gotten them to the point where I was satisfied with them, and I've released them. And then, like, as time goes on, I'll go back and realize, and there's the perfectionist mindset again, I go back and realize I flawed in certain areas, and it fucks with me. But I feel like at the same time of that, I get a chance to see that flaws can be successful as well. And that is something that I'm trying so fucking hard to absolutely just embed in myself, that there needs to be flaws in things, you know, because at the core of it all, being a perfectionist is having the mindset that things could possibly be flawless, when that is completely a flawed way of thinking. It's so weird, man. You can't make anything perfect. Everything has to have a flaw. It just has to. And that is something that we have to get across to ourselves. Now, I deal with, I guess, more of a subtle way of dealing with perfectionism. I mean, not dealing with, I deal with more of a subtle perfectionist version, I guess I could say. There's people out there who have to deal with this shit in a more dark matter than me. And that is part of the reason why I'm bringing this up in video and using this as a platform, the same way I did Morphin Syndrome, something a lot of people didn't even know existed, but it's something that I have, and I brought that to the table. And I made a video about that, and to be honest, it has touched a lot of hearts, I can see, because it's constantly like the #1 growing video on my last channel. You know, people are actually learning and getting into and trying to see if they have it or whatnot and all that. But perfectionism has its dark moments with a lot of people, way darker than what I just explained right here. Some people have this personality trait, and it makes them feel like they don't look good enough. They don't, you know, they're not doing the right things and stuff like that. And that type of shit is the aspect that could lead to depression, you know. and anorexia and all that stuff, and dealing with a lot of medical complications and whatnot. It's something that can really hinder your mind if you let it. And I feel like I'm blessed that I am not only a perfectionist, like I've always called that a blessing and a curse, but I'm also really optimistic. I have my pessimistic moments, but I'm really optimistic throughout every single day of my life. I try to stay positive, glass is still full type person. And I've had my back against the wall numerous amount of times throughout life, to the point where I nearly felt broken. And something would always tell me in my head, the same brain that is dealing with all this perfectionism and psychological bullshit, something is always telling me there's a light at the end of the tunnel, man. And you will make it through, and you will feel better. You know, negativity does not last forever. And it doesn't. And it's always proven right. It always has proved itself right every single time. But back to perfectionism, this is something that literally is a blessing and a curse, because it can get you places that you've never been in a positive manner, but it can also affect you negatively. And it has done that, a great deal of that to me. It's done a great deal of both of those to me. Like, I edit. When I'm in the midst of editing, I'm so critical and so pinpoint on my work that I just would refuse to release something to the public that has a flaw, even though at the same time in my mindset I know that everything has to have a flaw. But it's fucking hard for me. I've dealt with that with my Twitch channels, to the point where I've tweaked everything to the point where it looks good enough to stream and whatnot, but it doesn't look good enough to me. And it may be something that's against my power, against my will, or whatever, like dealing with internet connections and whatnot, or something just crashing, something wrong with my computer. I don't know, man. It really fucking affects me. It really does. It really does, and it always has. And I'm trying to come up with ways to force myself to understand that flaws have to exist. I know they exist. I know they serve a purpose in the universe, but when you're in the midst of doing work, it's hard to convince yourself that, because you just constantly have something pulling your brain, wanting you to make it perfect, even though it can't be fucking perfect. But man, I figured I'd just get this out there for you guys. And this is really the backbone. This is the reason why I'm always starting and stopping on YouTube or with anything. I'm always starting and stopping because I have to deal with this shit going on in my fucking head at the same time. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's a real obsessive trait when it comes to your work and all that. And it's not always pretty, man. So anyway, if you've been dealing with the same problem or any type of personality trait that has to do with perfectionism or anything similar, please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. I would appreciate it. Share this video with whomever you feel may need to hear it. You know, just share the video, man. But anyway, this is the Grant of Vega, also known as Addixx Life. I'm out. Peace.